Part 1. The room was dimly lit, with only the faint glow of holographic displays casting shadows on the walls. Deep beneath Geneva, in a secure chamber buried under layers of reinforced steel and secrecy, Earth's leaders gathered around a circular table. The air was tense, heavy with the weight of the decision they were about to make. Senator Laura Hayes sat at the head of the table, her sharp features softened by the pale blue light reflecting off her face. Across from her, General Ryan Carter leaned forward, his arms resting on the polished surface, his expression unreadable. For centuries, Earth had been part of the Galactic Council, an alliance of species that governed trade, diplomacy, and peace across the stars. It was supposed to be a partnership of equals, a chance for humanity to grow and thrive alongside beings from other worlds. But over time, cracks began to form. Alien species with more advanced technology and bigger fleets often pushed their agendas, leaving Earth's interests overlooked. Resources mined from human colonies were funneled to wealthier planets, while Earth struggled to rebuild after centuries of environmental damage. Cultural exchanges became one-sided, with Earth's traditions dismissed as primitive or irrelevant. Laura cleared her throat, breaking the silence. "We've debated this long enough," she said, her voice calm but firm. "It's time we decide whether Earth stays or leaves." General Carter nodded, though his jaw tightened slightly. He had spent years serving in the interstellar military, fighting wars he didn't always believe in, and enforcing policies that favored others over his own people. "I'm not saying it won't come with risks," he replied, his tone measured. "But staying means continuing to play by rules written by someone else. Leaving gives us control over our destiny." Around the table, murmurs of agreement and dissent rippled through the group. Some argued that stepping away would isolate Earth, leaving it vulnerable to attacks from hostile species. Others insisted it was the only way to reclaim dignity and sovereignty. The debate stretched on, voices rising and falling like waves, until finally, Laura called for a vote. One by one, hands went up. When the tally was complete, the decision was unanimous. Earth would leave the Galactic Council. The news spread quickly. Within hours, official announcements reached every corner of the planet. Holographic screens flickered to life in homes, offices, and public squares, showing President Matthew Keller standing before the United Nations flag. His speech was brief but powerful. "Today, humanity takes a stand," he declared. "We are no longer content to sit at the sidelines, waiting for scraps of opportunity. We will chart our own course among the stars." Not everyone celebrated. In cities across the globe, protests erupted. Crowds filled streets, holding signs that read "Stay strong together" or "Don't abandon the galaxy." Critics accused the government of arrogance, warning that isolation would lead to disaster. Supporters, however, cheered the move, waving flags and chanting slogans like *Earth First and *Freedom for Humanity. Far beyond Earth, shockwaves rippled through the galaxy. Alien ambassadors stationed on distant worlds exchanged urgent messages, trying to grasp the implications of Earth's departure. For some, it was an insult, a betrayal of trust. For others, it was an opportunity to seize power now that humanity was no longer part of the equation. On board the diplomatic cruiser Aurora, Captain Daniel Brooks watched the chaos unfold from the safety of his command deck. Reports flooded in from all directions: skirmishes near neutral zones, trade routes disrupted, alliances shifting overnight. "This is bad," muttered Lieutenant Emily Dawson, standing beside him. She tapped a screen displaying a map of the galaxy, dotted with red markers indicating conflicts. "If things keep escalating, we could see full-scale war." Daniel sighed, rubbing his temples. "War might already be here," he said quietly. "And if it comes, we need to be ready." Back on Earth, Laura Hayes stared out the window of her office, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The sky glowed orange and pink, a reminder of how small and fragile their world truly was. She felt a pang of doubt, but quickly pushed it aside. This wasn't just about today, it was about tomorrow. About giving future generations a chance to shape their own future, instead of living in someone else's shadow. Still, as night fell and the lights of the city twinkled below, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the edge of something vast and unpredictable. Something that might change everything for better or worse. The days following Earth's withdrawal from the Galactic Council were anything but calm. Across the galaxy, alliances began to shift like sand dunes in a storm. Smaller species, once protected under the umbrella of the Council, now found themselves scrambling for new partners. Some turned to the Zorathian Empire, a militaristic regime known for its ruthless efficiency and expansionist ambitions. Others aligned with the Valen Collective, a federation of traders and technologists whose influence stretched across dozens of star systems. But not everyone was eager to pick sides. Many feared that choosing poorly could mean destruction. On the diplomatic cruiser Aurora, Captain Daniel Brooks paced the command deck, his boots clicking softly against the metal floor. The ship had been monitoring communications from nearby sectors, and the reports were troubling. Skirmishes had broken out near neutral zones, areas traditionally off-limits to military action. These border regions were now hotbeds of tension, with ships exchanging fire over disputed territories. Daniel stopped in front of a large screen displaying a map of the galaxy. Red dots blinked ominously, marking recent conflicts. Each one represented lives lost, resources wasted, and trust eroded. Lieutenant Emily Dawson stood at her station, analyzing data streams as they flowed in. Her brow furrowed as she read through intercepted messages. "Captain," she said, turning to him, "it looks like the Krylos Syndicate is mobilizing forces near Proxima Centauri." Daniel frowned. The Krylos were notorious pirates, operating outside the law and preying on weaker colonies. If they were gathering strength, it meant trouble. "What are they after?" he asked. "Hard to say," Emily replied, tapping commands into her console. "But if I had to guess, they're targeting human settlements. We've pulled most of our patrols since leaving the Council. That leaves those colonies exposed." Daniel clenched his jaw. He knew she was right. Earth's decision to withdraw hadn't just affected politics. It had left gaps in security that others were quick to exploit. Without the backing of the Galactic Council, humanity's reach was limited. Ships and personnel were stretched thin, trying to cover too much space with too few resources. Back on Earth, the mood was equally tense. Cities buzzed with debate as citizens argued over whether leaving the Council had been the right move. In New York, crowds gathered outside government buildings, holding signs and chanting slogans. Some demanded a reversal of the decision, claiming it had destabilized the galaxy. Others defended the choice, insisting that Earth needed to prioritize itself before helping others. Journalists swarmed the scene, capturing footage of heated exchanges between protesters. One such journalist was Alex Monroe, a wiry man in his early 30s, with a knack for uncovering truths buried beneath layers of bureaucracy. Armed with a handheld recorder and an unshakable determination, he wove through the crowd, listening to snippets of conversation. A young woman shouted about how Earth's absence had emboldened hostile species. An older man countered, saying humanity should have left years ago. Everyone seemed to have an opinion, but no one had answers. Alex moved away from the noise, ducking into a quiet cafe to review his notes. His eyes scanned the jumble of scribbles and keywords, searching for connections. Something about the timing of these protests felt off. They were too organized, too widespread. It wasn't random anger, it was coordinated. Someone wanted to stir up dissent, and Alex intended to find out who. Meanwhile, Senator Laura Hayes sat in her office, staring at a stack of documents piled high on her desk. Reports of unrest poured in from across the globe. Protesters weren't just voicing their opinions, they were demanding action. Some called for increased military spending to protect vulnerable colonies. Others urged Earth to rejoin the Council, arguing that isolation would only make things worse. Laura sighed, rubbing her temples. She had known this decision wouldn't be easy, but she hadn't anticipated the sheer scale of backlash. Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock on the door. General Ryan Carter stepped inside, his uniform crisp despite the late hour. "Senator," he said, closing the door behind him, "we need to talk." Laura gestured for him to sit. "What is it, General?" "It's the Krylos," he said bluntly. "They've attacked a colony orbiting Proxima Centauri. Thousands dead, infrastructure destroyed. Survivors are blaming us for pulling out of the Council and leaving them unprotected." Laura's stomach sank. This was exactly what she had feared, the consequences of Earth's withdrawal spilling onto innocent lives. "Do we know why they targeted that colony specifically?" she asked. Ryan shook his head. "Not yet, but it's clear they saw an opportunity and took it. Without Council oversight, there's nothing stopping them or anyone else from doing the same elsewhere." Laura leaned back in her chair, her mind racing. Retaliation was inevitable. Earth couldn't afford to appear weak, especially now, but striking back carried its own risks. Every action would ripple outward, affecting fragile alliances and escalating tensions further. Still, doing nothing wasn't an option. The people deserved justice, and Earth needed to send a message. Humanity might have left the Council, but it wasn't powerless. By the next morning, President Matthew Keller addressed the nation from the Oval Office. His expression was grim as he outlined the situation. "Last night, a cowardly attack claimed the lives of thousands of our fellow humans," he began. "This act of aggression will not go unanswered. Under my authority, General Carter has been tasked with leading Operation Red Horizon, a swift and decisive response to hold those responsible accountable." As the broadcast ended, preparations began in earnest. Earth's advanced technology, developed during decades of isolation, gave them an edge. Stealth fighters equipped with cutting-edge weaponry were deployed, along with autonomous drones designed to overwhelm enemy defenses. The operation launched within hours, catching the Krylos off guard. Their makeshift fleet was decimated, and surviving ships fled into deeper space. While the mission succeeded in neutralizing the immediate threat, it also ignited fresh controversy. Critics accused Earth of overreacting, warning that retaliation would provoke further violence. Supporters hailed the strike as necessary, proof that humanity could defend itself without relying on the Council. Amid the chaos, one thing became clear: Earth's departure had set off a chain reaction, and the galaxy was spiraling into disorder. On board the Aurora, Daniel watched the aftermath unfold. Casualty reports trickled in, painting a grim picture of the cost of war. Despite the victory, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast and unpredictable, filled with species vying for power and survival. Earth had stepped away from the Council, but stepping away from conflict wasn't so simple. Standing beside him, Emily voiced what they both were thinking. "We've made our point," she said quietly, "but at what cost? And where does it stop?" Daniel didn't answer. He didn't have to. The question hung in the air, unanswered, as the stars shimmered beyond the viewport. The galaxy was changing faster than anyone could keep up with. The attack on the Proxima Centauri colony had been a wake-up call, but it was only the first ripple in a growing storm. News of Earth's retaliation spread quickly, carried by transmissions and whispered conversations among alien diplomats. To some, the strike against the Krylos Syndicate was a show of strength, message that humanity wasn't to be underestimated. To others, it was reckless provocation, proof that Earth's withdrawal from the Galactic Council had destabilized the fragile balance of power. On board the Aurora, Captain Daniel Brooks stared at the latest intelligence reports scrolling across his command deck. The Krylos retreat hadn't ended the threat. Instead, It had fractured their forces into smaller, more unpredictable groups. Pirate raids were popping up everywhere on trade routes, near mining operations, even close to Earth's own borders. Worse still, rumors suggested that larger factions like the Zorthian Empire might be covertly supporting the Krylos, using them as proxies to test Earth's resolve. Lieutenant Emily Dawson approached him, holding a tablet displaying intercepted communications. "Captain," she said, her voice low, "we've picked up chatter about coordinated attacks. Multiple targets, all within human-controlled space." Daniel frowned. "How many?" "At least 5 colonies," Emily replied. "If they hit simultaneously, we won't have enough ships to defend them all." The weight of responsibility pressed down on Daniel's shoulders. He knew what was at stake, not just lives, but Earth's reputation. Every failure would embolden enemies and weaken allies. Yet spreading their forces too thin risked losing everything. "Alert command," he ordered. "We need reinforcements sand-fast." Back on Earth, General Ryan Carter faced similar challenges. Operation Red Horizon had dealt a blow to the Krylos, but it hadn't solved the bigger problem. Humanity's vulnerabilities were exposed, and other species were taking notice. In a secure briefing room beneath Washington, D.C., Carter stood before a holographic map of known threats. Red markers clustered around key locations, resource-rich moons, strategic waypoints, and vulnerable colonies. Each one represented a potential flashpoint. Senator Laura Hayes sat at the table, her expression grim. "What's the plan?" she asked, cutting straight to the point. Carter turned to face her. "We fortify our borders," he said. "Deploy automated defense grids around critical colonies. Use drones to patrol trade routes. And we send a clear message. Anyone who crosses us will regret it." Laura nodded slowly, though doubt lingered in her eyes. Military solutions were necessary, but they weren't enough. Earth couldn't fight every battle alone. She glanced at the map again, her gaze lingering on neutral zones, where tensions simmered. There had to be another way to unite rather than divide. Her thoughts were interrupted by an urgent message from President Matthew Keller. A video feed flickered to life, showing Keller seated at his desk. His face was drawn, fatigue etched into every line. "Senator, General," he began, "we've received word from the Quarren." The Quarren were enigmatic beings, aquatic in nature, and rarely seen outside their oceanic homeworlds. Known for their pacifism, they had largely avoided involvement in galactic politics. For them to reach out now was unprecedented. "What do they want?" Laura asked, leaning forward. "They're offering assistance," Keller explained. "Intelligence, resources, maybe even troops, if we agree to help restore stability to the galaxy." Carter raised an eyebrow. "Why would they care? They've stayed neutral for centuries." "Because neutrality won't save them this time," Keller replied. "Their ambassador claims the Zorthians are expanding unchecked. If we don't act, the entire quadrant could fall under their control." Laura exchanged a glance with Carter. The offer was tempting, but accepting it came with risks. Aligning with the Quarren could draw Earth deeper into the conflict, making them a target for even more powerful adversaries. Still, refusing meant missing a chance to tip the scales in their favor. "We'll consider it," Laura said finally. "But we need more information first." As discussions continued on Earth, events elsewhere spiraled further out of control. On a distant moon orbiting a gas giant, a small human settlement braced for impact. Alarms blared as sensors detected incoming ship Skrillo's raiders, judging by their erratic flight patterns. Panic spread through the colony as residents scrambled to evacuate or take cover. Among them was Alex Monroe, the journalist who had followed the story of Earth's withdrawal since its inception. He had come to the colony seeking first-hand accounts of life on the frontier, unaware that danger loomed so close. Now, trapped in a makeshift shelter with a dozen frightened colonists, he recorded every moment on his handheld device, Outside, chaos erupted. Explosions lit up the night sky as raiders descended, firing indiscriminately. Buildings crumbled, fires raged, and screams echoed through the air. Alex clenched his fists, torn between fear and determination. This wasn't just a story anymore. It was real, raw, and devastating. Hours later, when the attack subsided, Alex emerged from the shelter to document the aftermath. The scene was apocalyptic: smoking ruins, bodies lying motionless, survivors crying for help. As he filmed, a young woman approached him, her face streaked with soot and tears. "Why did this happen?" she demanded, her voice trembling. "Why? Didn't anyone protect us?" Alex hesitated, unsure how to respond. He wanted to tell her that Earth cared, that help was coming, but deep down, he knew the truth. Humanity's departure from the Galactic Council had left places like this exposed. Promises of self-determination rang hollow when survival itself was at risk. News of the attack reached Earth within hours. Images of destruction flooded media outlets, sparking outrage and calls for action. Protesters filled streets once again, their chants louder and angrier than before. Some demanded retribution, while others urged reconciliation. Amid the noise, Senator Laura Hayes made a decision. She called an emergency session of the Senate, proposing a coalition not just with the Quarren, but with any species willing to stand against tyranny. General Carter supported the idea, though cautiously. "Alliances are double-edged swords," he warned. "They can strengthen us, but they can also drag us into wars we don't want." "I know," Laura replied, "but we can't fight this alone. Not anymore." As plans took shape, Captain Daniel Brooks prepared the Aurora for deployment. Their mission was twofold: gather intelligence on Zorthian movements and establish contact with potential allies. It was a delicate task, requiring diplomacy as much as military precision. Standing on the bridge, Daniel addressed his crew. "This isn't just about protecting Earth," he said firmly. "It's about protecting everyone who values freedom and fairness. We're not here to conquer, we're here to unite." The words resonated, bolstering morale aboard the ship. Yet as the Aurora set course for uncharted territory, uncertainty loomed large. The galaxy was vast, unpredictable, and dangerous. Every choice carried consequences, and every alliance came with compromises. Humanity had stepped away from the Galactic Council, but stepping away from responsibility wasn't so simple. In the quiet moments between briefings and strategy sessions, Daniel often found himself gazing out at the stars. They seemed endless, indifferent to the struggles of those below. Somewhere among them lay answers, or perhaps only more questions. Whatever the future held, one thing was certain: Earth's journey was far from over. The Aurora drifted silently through the void, its sleek hull reflecting the faint light of a distant star. On board, Captain Daniel Brooks reviewed the latest transmission from Earth. The message was brief, but packed with urgency. Establish contact with the Quarren and assess their willingness to join forces. It wasn't just about gaining allies anymore, it was about survival. Humanity couldn't face the growing chaos alone, and the Quarren's offer of support had come at a critical time. Lieutenant Emily Dawson stood beside him on the bridge, her eyes scanning the navigation console. "We're approaching their territory," she said, pointing to a cluster of coordinates on the screen. "Their homeworld is deep underwater, so we'll need to use submersible shuttles to reach them." Daniel nodded. "Let's hope they're as cooperative as their ambassador claims." He turned to the rest of the crew. "Prepare the shuttles. And remember, this isn't just a diplomatic mission. We're walking into uncharted waters, literally and figuratively." Hours later, the Aurora entered orbit around the Quarren homeworld, a planet almost entirely covered by oceans. Its surface shimmered like liquid glass under the twin suns that bathed it in soft golden light. From above, it looked serene, peaceful even. But Daniel knew appearances could be deceiving. Beneath those waves lay an advanced civilization with secrets humanity had barely begun to understand. The shuttle descended smoothly, guided by automated systems designed for aquatic environments. Inside, Daniel and Emily sat alongside two security officers, their weapons holstered, but ready. The air was tense, charged with anticipation. None of them had ever met the Quarren face-to-face before. Everything they knew came from second-hand accounts and fragmented data. As they breached the water's surface, the world outside the shuttle transformed. Schools of bioluminescent fish darted past the windows, casting ethereal glows in shades of blue and green. Towering coral structures rose from the seabed, pulsating with life. In the distance, massive domes made of translucent material marked the entrance to the Quarren city. These weren't ordinary buildings, they were living organisms, grown rather than built, blending seamlessly with their surroundings. The shuttle docked at one of the domes, and the team disembarked cautiously. They stepped onto a platform that seemed to ripple beneath their boots, responding to their weight like a living thing. Moments later, a group of Quarren emerged from the shadows. Their forms were fluid, shifting between humanoid shapes and something more akin to sea creatures. Their skins shimmered with iridescent hues, and their large, luminous eyes regarded the humans with curiosity. Niravas, the Quarren ambassador who had first contacted Earth, swam forward gracefully. Her voice resonated in their minds rather than their ears, a telepathic connection established upon arrival. "Welcome, travelers," she said, her tone calm, yet firm. "You honor us with your presence." Daniel inclined his head respectfully. "Thank you for receiving us, Ambassador. We've come seeking your help, and offering ours in return." Niravis gestured for them to follow, leading the way deeper into the dome. As they moved, the walls around them pulsed gently, as if alive. The air was thick with moisture, carrying the faint scent of salt and algae. Despite the strangeness of the environment, Daniel felt a sense of peace. There was no hostility here, only cautious curiosity. They arrived at a chamber filled with glowing orbs, suspended in midair, each containing holographic projections of different regions of the galaxy. Niravas paused beside one orb, which displayed a map of Zorathian-controlled space. "Your departure from the Galactic Council has created instability," she said carefully. "The Zorathians see opportunity where others see chaos. They are expanding rapidly, consuming resources and subjugating weaker species." Emily frowned. "Why haven't you intervened? You have the technology and the numbers to stop them." "It is not our way to engage in conflict," Naravis replied, "but neither can we stand idly by while destruction spreads. That is why we seek partnership, not domination, but balance." Daniel crossed his arms, considering her words. "What do you propose?" "We will share intelligence," Naravis explained. "Our networks extend far beyond what you can monitor. We also offer limited military assistance, though our methods differ from yours. Non-lethal measures, aimed at containment rather than annihilation." It wasn't exactly the alliance Daniel had hoped for, but it was better than nothing. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the Quarren's involvement than they were letting on. "Why now?" he asked bluntly. "Your people have stayed neutral for centuries. Why step in now?" Niravis hesitated, her shimmering form rippling slightly. "Because neutrality offers no protection when the tide turns against all life. If the Zerothians succeed, no one will be safe, not even us." Back on Earth, Senator Laura Hayes and General Ryan Carter reviewed the initial reports from the Aurora. While optimistic about the Quarren's offer, they remained wary. Trusting in alien species, even one as seemingly benevolent as the Quarren, was a gamble. Yet the alternative was standing alone against an increasingly hostile galaxy. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Alex Monroe continued his investigation into the growing unrest. After narrowly escaping the Krylos attack on the Proxima Centauri colony, he had returned to Earth, determined to uncover the truth. His sources pointed to a shadowy network, of corporate interests profiting from the chaos, selling weapons and supplies to both sides of the conflict. One name kept surfacing: Nexus Dynamics, a powerful interstellar conglomerate with ties to the Zorathians. Alex dug deeper, piecing together fragments of evidence. He discovered encrypted files suggesting that Nexus Dynamics had been funneling funds to rogue factions like the Krylos, stoking violence to destabilize the region. It was a dangerous game, one that risked dragging Earth further into the fray. But exposing the conspiracy could shift public opinion and, perhaps, force the government to take action. One evening, Alex arranged a meeting with a whistleblower who claimed to have insider knowledge of Nexus Dynamics operations. The rendezvous took place in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Chicago. Shadows danced across the walls as Alex waited, his recorder ready. When the informant arrived, a nervous young technician named Marcus, he wasted no time getting to the point. "I've seen the records," Marcus whispered, glancing over his shoulder. "They're not just arming the Krylos. They're planning something bigger, an attack on Earth itself." Alex's blood ran cold. "Do you have proof?" Marcus nodded, pulling a data chip from his pocket. "Everything's on here. Locations, dates, shipments. But if they find out I gave this to you, you'll be in danger," Alex finished grimly. "Stay off the grid. I'll make sure this gets to the right people." As Alex left the warehouse, clutching the chip tightly, he realized the stakes had just gotten higher. This wasn't just about piracy or territorial disputes anymore. It was about survival. If Nexus Dynamics succeeded, humanity's fragile foothold in the galaxy would crumble. On board the Aurora, Daniel received a secure transmission from Earth. Attached to the message was a file labeled Priority Alpha. Opening it, he found detailed intel on Nexus Dynamics activities, courtesy of Alex Monroe. The revelations confirmed his worst fears. The galaxy's descent into chaos wasn't random. It was orchestrated, fueled by greed and ambition. "This changes everything," Emily murmured, reading over his shoulder. "If we don't act soon, it won't just be colonies under threat. It'll be Earth itself." Daniel clenched his jaw, his resolve hardening. "Then, we fight back. Not just for ourselves but for everyone who believes in a better future." The pieces were falling into place, but the picture they formed was dark and uncertain. Humanity had stepped away from the Galactic Council, seeking freedom and self-determination. Instead, they had stumbled into a web of intrigue and peril. Allies were few, enemies many, and the path forward fraught with danger. Yet amidst the turmoil, one truth remained clear: giving up wasn't an option. For Earth, for the Quarren, and for countless others caught in the crossfire, the fight for peace and justice had only just begun. The tension aboard the Aurora was palpable. Captain Daniel Brooks sat in his quarters, staring at the data chip Alex Monroe had sent from Earth. It contained damning evidence of Nexus Dynamics' role in fueling galactic chaos, evidence that could change everything. But acting on it wasn't going to be easy. If Nexus Dynamics truly had ties to the Zorathian Empire, exposing them would mean declaring war not just on a corporation, but on one of the most powerful species in the galaxy. Daniel's thoughts were interrupted by a knock on the door. Lieutenant Emily Dawson entered, her expression grim. "We've got a problem," she said without preamble. "Someone leaked classified intel about our mission with the Quarren." Daniel frowned. "What kind of leak?" "Details of our meeting with Naravis, including their offer of assistance. Someone posted it online, and now it's spreading like wildfire. The Zorathians know we're working together." This was bad, very bad. Earth's fragile alliance with the Quarren was still in its infancy, and public knowledge of it could provoke retaliation. Worse, it put the Quarren themselves at risk. If the Zorathians saw them as collaborators, they wouldn't hesitate to strike. "Who could have done this?" Daniel asked. Though he already suspected the answer, Emily hesitated before replying. "It's possible there's a mole on board. Someone feeding information to Nexus Dynamics or directly to the Zorathians? Daniel leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. A traitor among the crew. It was unthinkable, yet it made sense. Their missions had been too precise lately, almost as if the enemy knew exactly where to hit. He glanced at Emily. Start running background checks on everyone, and tighten security protocols. No transmissions leave this ship without clearance. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Senator Laura Hayes convened an emergency session with General Ryan Carter and President Matthew Keller. The news of the leak had reached them, along with rumors of sabotage within Earth's military ranks. The implications were chilling. If someone inside their own government was aiding the enemy, trust was eroding faster than they could rebuild it. We need answers, Keller said, slamming his fist on the table. Now, Laura nodded, her face pale but determined. General, I want your best people on this. Find out who's behind this and why. Carter didn't waste time. He assigned a team of investigators to dig into recent communications and personnel records. Hours turned into days as they combed through files, searching for anomalies. Finally, they found something suspicious. Encrypted messages sent from a high-ranking officer's terminal to unknown recipients. The officer in question, none other than Colonel Aaron Blake, a decorated veteran trusted by many including Carter himself. When confronted, Blake denied any wrongdoing, claiming his account had been hacked. But the evidence was damning. Logs showed he had accessed sensitive files moments before key operations failed. Whether he was guilty or framed, one thing was clear: his position compromised national security. This is bigger than Blake, Carter muttered to Laura after interrogating him. If he's involved, others might be too. While the investigation unfolded, journalist Alex Monroe faced dangers of his own. After handing over the data chip to authorities, he became a target. One night, as he left his apartment, a black car pulled up beside him. Two men stepped out, their faces obscured by hoods. Before Alex could react, they grabbed him, dragging him into the vehicle. Inside, the air was thick with menace. A man in a tailored suit sat across from him, his voice calm but menacing. "You've caused us quite a bit of trouble, Mr. Monroe." Alex struggled against his restraints, his heart pounding. "Who are you?" "You don't need to know that," the man replied. "But what you do need to understand is simple. Stop digging, or next time, we won't let you walk away." They dumped him on the side of the road hours later, warning him to stay quiet. Shaken but undeterred, Alex returned home and began encrypting all his findings. Whoever these people were, they weren't playing games, but neither was he. Back aboard the Aurora, Daniel implemented new measures to root out the mole. Crew members were subjected to polygraph tests, and restricted access zones were established. Suspicion hung heavy in the air, straining relationships once built on camaraderie. Even Emily found herself questioning those around her, unsure whom to trust. Then came another blow. A supply shipment bound for the Quarren homeworld went missing en route. When the transport vessel was discovered adrift, its cargo bay empty, it became clear that betrayal ran deeper than anyone had imagined. Naravas contacted the Aurora shortly afterward. Her telepathic voice carried a note of urgency. "Your actions have consequences," she warned. "The Zorathians grow bolder. They see weakness in your division." Daniel clenched his fists. "We're doing everything we can to fix this. Time is not on your side," Naravas replied cryptically. "Decide quickly, or the tides will turn against you." As the days passed, cracks began to show not only within the crew, but also among Earth's leadership. Rumors circulated that some senators favored negotiating peace with the Zorathians rather than continuing the fight. Others argued for escalating military action, regardless of cost. Laura Hayes found herself caught in the middle, torn between pragmatism and idealism. One evening, she met privately with General Carter. "We're losing control," she admitted, her voice heavy with frustration. Every decision we make seems to make things worse. Carter sighed, leaning against the wall. War always does. But giving up isn't an option. We chose this path when we left the council. Now we have to see it through. Laura looked at him, searching for reassurance. Do you really think we can win? I think we have to try, Carter replied firmly. For humanity's sake. Despite the mounting challenges, small victories kept hope alive. Alex managed to publish part of his exposé, revealing Nexus Dynamics' role in arming the Krylos Syndicate. Public outrage surged, pressuring Earth's government to take legal action against the corporation. Meanwhile, the Aurora intercepted a Zorathian convoy carrying stolen resources, dealing a significant blow to their supply lines. Yet even these successes felt hollow. Each step forward seemed to uncover 2 steps back. Betrayal, mistrust, and fear gnawed at the foundations of unity. Humanity had stepped away from the Galactic Council, seeking freedom, but freedom came with a price, one measured in lives, alliances, and sacrifices. Captain Daniel Brooks stood on the bridge of the Aurora, staring out at the stars. Somewhere beyond the endless expanse lay answers, or perhaps more questions. Whatever lay ahead, one truth remained clear. The galaxy was changing, and Earth had to change with it. For better or worse, the choices they made now would shape the future of countless worlds. And so, amidst uncertainty and danger, humanity pressed onward, clinging to the fragile hope that light could still emerge from darkness.